Welcome to another week of Farbrengen on the Sikha, Farbrengen on air. Today we have the honor and privilege to host Rabbi Friedman. We also have Rabbi Yisroel Wilhelm from Boulder, Colorado, joining us today as we are going to present Rabbi Manis with questions on this week's Sikha. The Rebbe begins with Dir B'Tachteinim. The topic of this Sikha is Dir B'Tachteinim. And the Rebbe shares a bomb that until now, in the other weeks of Project of the Sikhas, we discussed the mitzvahs, Torah, different methods of accomplishing Dir B'Tachteinim. This week, the Rebbe shares that the way that's accomplished is through Neshamas Yisroel. So, Reb Manis, if you could elaborate a little bit on this topic.
Well, let's get to the main question that the Rebbe is answering here in the Sikha, and that is, the Parsha ends with the statement that the Shechina was so revealed in the Mishkan that even Moshe was unable to enter it. And then it says that only when the Shechina lifted and departed from the Mishkan was Moshe able to enter, and that's when the Jews traveled. As long as the Shechina was in the Mishkan, there was no traveling, but when the Shechina lifted from the Mishkan, that's when they traveled. And the Rebbe's question is, what does that have to do with the Mishkan itself? You're talking about how the Mishkan became a place of godliness, God's dwelling place, and he was so revealed that even Moshe couldn't enter. Then all of a sudden, it switches the topic to when did they travel? When did they travel? When the Shechina was not in the Mishkan. That seems to be the opposite of what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how great the presence was in the Mishkan, and all of a sudden you're introducing the fact that it left the Mishkan, and then they went traveling.
It's interesting that later, the next Parsha, Vayikra, continues the topic back to the Mishkan. So it seems that this whole conversation about the Yidden traveling is a separate conversation that has nothing to do with what's going on in the Psukim.
Right. So what is this series of statements? How does it all hang together? What's the hemshech here? So to understand it, we have to understand a little bit better what it means to have the Shechina Lamata. What does it mean, Adira B'Tachteinim? Now, the first thought that a person can have is, Adira B'Tachteinim means that the Eibishter is revealed in the lowest world, even though it's a low world. Despite the ugliness, afilu b'hastura, bevadai gam sham, which means that Kedusha, the presence of the Eibishter, is so strong, it can break through even the darkest places. The Rebbe says, no, that's not the point. The point is that even in the darkest places, godliness is natural. It's not antagonistic. It's not afal pi. Because, Eined Milvade, unless asar poni minei, the Eibishter is bligvul, and the real bligvul means that it doesn't have the limitation that Kedusha can only be in a Mokim Kodesh. That's not Bligvul. Bligvul means that Kedusha is everywhere naturally. There is the Kedusha in the darkness. But we have to be Megala that. So making a Dir B'Tachteinim means reveal the godliness that exists in the darkness. Which darkness? Kesef, Zohov, Tcheles, not evil. In other words, in Klippas Noiga, Gashmizdika things that seem to be very limited, and there is no evidence of anything infinite, that's just the Helem. We have to reveal the fact that in the finite, there is infinite. Because infinite doesn't mean too big to be small. So here's one of the Chidushim, not in this sikha, but in Chassidus. God can be infinite, and God can be finite. Because if you say he can only be infinite, then he's not really infinite. And he's stuck in the infinity. Real infinity means big, small, whatever. It's all included. That's called infinite. Infinitely big, infinitely small. Maila maila adin safa, mata mata adin tachlis.
When I try and explain to students that the world is a good place, I used to use the mashal before I started learning with the sikhas. I used to use the mashal of we used to bring them a pile of dirt and then have a little ring inside. And I asked them, what is this? And they said it's dirt. And I'm like, no, it's not really dirt. It's a ring. But when you're learning this, and then you tell basically that you have to uncover the dirt and you find the gold. And then you ask them again, and then you tell them that now it's a ring. When you're learning it with what you just said, the dirt's not dirt. The whole mushal is wrong. The dirt itself is kedusha. It just seems that it's dirt.
Right. So a little bit off the topic, but the Rambam makes such a big, strong emphasis al yale al hadas, that Mashiach has to do miracles. Va'al yale al halev, that b'yemeis HaMashiach there'll be a shinui in teva. It's very strong language. Just tell me what I should think, and I'll think it like every other halacha. What all of a sudden he's getting emotional about this? Like al yale al hadas. Don't you dare think. Hey, you're changing your tone. You were doing quite well at 14 volumes. What is that? At the end, you get so emotional? What is that? So listen to this mushal. A king has a hill right in the middle of the capital city where it's very inconvenient. He has to get rid of that mound, that hill. So he makes an announcement that there's gold, like you're saying, there's a ring, there's gold in the hill. And whoever wants can come, borrow tools from the palace, and dig out the gold that's in that mountain. There's no gold in the mountain. But by the time the people realize that there's no gold in the mountain's gone. They dug it away. But the king is a man of his words. So he comes with a wagon full of gold from the palace, and he gives everyone who dug in the mountain, he gives them all gold. Everybody's happy. And Rambam says, don't you dare. I just finished giving you 14 volumes of the tools that it takes to dig out the gold in Olam Hazeh. Because the Eibishter said that Olam Hazeh has the most precious gold. Now you're going to come and tell me that in the end, there's no gold. Olam Hazeh is not gold. It was all in the soyin. It was all like a test. And you did good because you dug and you were a good boy, so Mashiach will come and bring you gold from heaven. He'll do miracles for you. Rambam says, don't you dare do that. Because the king who said there's gold in the mountain and then gives you gold from the palace, that's sheker. That's not Teiras Emes. Teiras Emes says that there's gold in the mountain. not hiding in the mountain. That the essence of the mountain is gold. So now Mashiach is going to come and say, the truth is, Teva is still not good. It'll never be good. So I'll give you things, L'mayla min Teva. Sheker. So the Rambam says, if you think like that, you've just undone everything I've written in the first 14 volumes.
Wow.
So here's what the Rebbe is saying in the sikha. We have to reveal the godliness that exists in the finite, the bli gvul that is in the gvul. But like everything else, the Rebbe never stops at bli gvul. He calls it atzmus. It's not just infinite godliness, it's God himself. So infinite doesn't mean a size measure. It means beyond everything, him. So it's not a gilui that is bli gvul. It's him. And he is certainly beyond gvul and bli gvul and so on. Okay, so what happens in the Mishkan? Two things the Rebbe says. First of all, the Mishkan is the place. It is the place of the Shekhinah. So intense and so awesome that even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't walk in. But then there's another function, and that is karbanos. What are these two things? You might think that by bringing a carbon, you cause the Eibishter to be revealed in the Mishkan. The Rebbe says no, and this is a chiddush. It's the opposite. Because the Eibishter is in the Mishkan, that's why a carbon can be a carbon and not just the waste of an animal. What does the carbon do? The carbon brings the Shekhinah that is already in the Mishkan to the rest of the world. To the objects of the world, like a sheep, a goat, where it becomes Kedusha. So going from the greatness of the Mishkan to the bringing of Karbonos is like going from Sefer Shmos to Sefer Vayikra. So the word Vayikra has a small aleph because you're going down from the infinite to the finite. You're going from a bigger to a smaller. The carbon doesn't bring the Shekhinah. The carbon is possible because of the Shekhinah. But it's a finite application of the Shekhinah. So the Shekhinah is present infinitely in the Mishkan, and it is also present infinitely in a goat, in a finite place. Not despite the finiteness, but because of it. It seems when you first read the sikha, it says, Ubahalois hashchina, ha'onan. Ha'alois means it goes away. Right? That's the conventional wisdom.
Right.
The Pashta Pshat is it goes away, and now it's not so good anymore. But the word ha'alois means it goes up higher. By leaving the Mishkan, you achieve something even higher. What's higher? When you can reveal what's in the Mishkan in places outside of the Mishkan. If the Shekhinah can come down even to a place that is not a mochin, muchan lekarbonis, not a place dedicated to Kedusha. But then the pasuk says that when the onan, when the Shekhinah lifted from the Mishkan, that's when Jews went on their journeys. What does journey mean? The korban, the goat, is a kosher animal. Non-kosher animals could not be used for a sacrifice, for a korban. So what are you doing? You're bringing the infinite holiness of the mishkan into a kosher animal. Very finite, very small, very tiny. It's amazing that the infinite presence of the Eibishter can be in such a small, narrow, limited place, but a kosher place. The travels, the journeys, that's going outside of the place where Jews belong into places where Jews don't go. Midbar ha'amim. In other words, we now know that God can be present even in finite holiness. What about unholiness? As long as unholiness exists, then the Dira B'Tachtenim is not complete.
If you look at Ha'ara 44, the Rebbe says over there that it's on the last page, that's why the true Sipra Masois really continues later in Parshas Bamidbar, because it has to happen after the Karbonis. In other words, it's mentioned now to point that that's the Kavanah, but the ultimate goal is, in other words, even the Karbonis is not where we're really at. Really, the ultimate Masois comes later.
Yeah. And that's why Bamidbar really implies when we're in Golus, when we're not in Eretz HaKodesh. It's a Midbar. So even there, not only is Kedusha present, but the darkness of unholiness, not just the limitations, the gvul on Kedusha. In other words, like this. The finiteness of the world is not a problem at all. Finite is not a contradiction to the Eibishter. On the contrary, we know God's greatness because we see his power in the finite. That brings out his greatness. Because if you say he's only capable of infinite, but he's not capable of finite, so the fact that things are finite is not the conflict between right and wrong, between God and ungod. That's all God. The real struggle, the real chidush, is what about those things that are not finite? The problem is not gvul, the problem is Helem v'Hester. That's not a compliment to God. That's anti-God. What do we do with that? That's Bamidbar. The unholiness, not the finiteness. And that's why we say in Olenu, Lahafne seilecha kol rishei oretz, yakiru v'yedu kol boye olam. Kol boye olam. Or v'yeda kol pa'ul ki ata pa'alte. I have to quote Rabbi on this. Rabbi was farbringing, and he said, it comes in the davening of Yom Kippur, when it comes to mi yichya mi yomus, the son of Tekef, everybody gets emotional, me hebt dan weinen, me klokt, mi yichya mi yomus. Rabbi says, was weint men was? Mi yichya mi yomus, shtusim. When should you cry? You should cry by v'yeda kol pa'ol ke'ata pa'alte. how long does it take before Yeda Kol Pa'ol Ke'ata Pa'alte? How long is the Eibishter going to be hidden? That's annoying. Living, dying, that's all part of the plan. So, V'yeda Kol Pa'ol. Not every Jew, not everything holy, everything, the unholy. Lahafne Selecha Kol Rishei Oretz. Not that they should die, but that the godliness in them should be revealed. Because really, Ein Eid Milvade. Unholiness is not something separate from the Eibishter other than an appearance to us.
There's a story where Rashbatz, what you're saying about the world, Vieda Kolpol, Katapalte. So he was having a fabring in his house, and Chassidim came, and after a while, they ran out of farbison. So he said, I have a lamb in the backyard. You could shech the lamb, and we can make a nice barbecue, and the fabring should continue. And Kachava, that's what they did. And they had farbison, the fabring continued. People were all inspired. The next morning, the Rashbatz's wife comes in and says, where's the lamb? So Rashbatz says, the lamb is here, the lamb is here. She says, what do you mean it's here? It's not here. She says, just like it was here yesterday, it's here today. There's only one difference. Yesterday, the lamb went meh, meh. Today, the lamb is saying, echad, echad.
That was a very long fabringen, because how long does it take to kasher the meat? Unless they broiled it all in like a liver or something. Anyway,
if I can interject here for a second. So a lot of what you're speaking, I'm just going through the sikha, is Ois Daled really speaks about this opposite idea of this idea of Ois Gimel Ois Daled, of this infinite and finite dominion. The Rebbe speaks about it a lot. But then if you can open up the Ois Hey, just for bringing a little bit about the second paragraph in Ois Hey, so I'll read it for a minute over here. It says the Pnimis the Inyan from the Dir Leisbarich, the Pnimis, the true idea of Dir Betachtonim, of Dir Leisbarich, sorry, is Dafka Lodru Belishke B'Neshamis Yisroel, is for Hashem's holiness to rest in the Neshamis Yisroel. She Knesses Yisroel Mochin L'Shifti Yisbarich. From Mibate the Shalva Kutshabichu Kulachat, since Hashem and the Yidden are all one. Zayin Dach Yidden the Emes Dira. Yidden are the true Dira for Atzmus Yisbarich. Zayin Kaviyochel Ein Zach mit Atzmus. Now, I'm not. We can get into the philosophy for a minute, but I obviously want to bring it back. It's a fabring and bring it back to the avodah. But first, let's just talk about it for a few minutes, and then we'll, fabring a little bit about how this makes the sikha even more powerful. Make this idea of going out there, of the tachtonim, of dealing with tachtonim even more powerful.
So, what does it say here?
I've been waiting all week to hear.
You say making a dir b'tachteinen is basically in the Neshamas Yisroel. Why? Because Neshamas Yisroel are one thing with the Eibishter. Yisroel kutshabricha kulachad. So 1 second. If it's kulachad, why do we need to make it into a dir b'tachteinen? It is the dir b'tachteinen. Once the Zohar reveals that kulachad, not miskashron, but kulachad, all of a sudden everything else becomes irrelevant. Like if the Eden are kulachad with the Eibishter without a kaviyachol, then what does it mean? Avinu malkeinu. What Avinu, what Malkeinu? We are one with him. Not only that, Ata bechartona mikol ha'amin. Why? What do you need the bechira for? We're already him. Everything else is petty compared to that. So it's almost like cancel everything you ever heard. It's not important. It's not negeya. It's kul achad. So now, was felt? What's the whole avodah? What avodah? It's kul achad. The avodah is to reveal it, which is a very interesting thing. You make a chasana. Chasana means you found your zivug, and v'hoyu lebasar echad. This is a very exclusive relationship. It's just the chasana and kala, nobody else, and yet you invite the whole community to come celebrate your chasana. Why? It's none of their business. And yet, simchas chasan v'kala, big thing. To be mesameach chasan v'kala. What do you need to be mesameach? They're becoming basar echad. The dira b'tachtenim needs to be understood properly. There are actually people who think that the Eibishter wants a dira where he can be alone, to get away from us.
Right, that we are here in order to create a tachtonim.
Where he can get away from us.
Right. Just do your thing and move on.
Yeah. So the Eibishter says, make me a house, make me a thing where I can hide from you. That's not a dira b'tachtenim. That's not a dira at all. A dira doesn't mean a place where you are alone. That's not a dira. That's a disaster. I have to use a very pashut mashal. If a man says to a woman, let's build a home. So she goes to Home Depot and comes back with 2x4s and with hammer and nails. And the guy says, what are you doing? She said, you said you wanted to build a home. He says, you didn't understand me. Build a home means marry me. Not become a carpenter. Because a home where you are by yourself is not a home. It's an empty house. So a dira doesn't mean where I can get away from you. It's where we can be together. So the shaila is, again, why are you inviting the whole community? Why v'yeda kol po'ol ki alta pa'alte? Who cares? This is a personal, private, intimate relationship. And the whole world has no business mixing in over here. So you're worried that there is somebody someplace in the world who doesn't know his creator. That's your problem? That stops you from making a dira b'tachtenim. You are the dira. You are one with him. What do you care that l'hafnei seilecha kol rishei oretz? Somehow, we have to explain this. The marriage is not complete in its gilui until everybody approves. What does it mean to be mesameach chasan and kala? You're coming to tell the chasan kala that what they're doing is wonderful.
If you don't mind, can you read us and translate 2 paragraphs over here? this on page 478 of the sikha, on the two last paragraphs of Ois Hey. I mean, the Rebbe is saying what you're what you're talking about. So Nardidira, if you can read that and translate.
A second, I just lost it here. Now, where is it? Page what?
478 in my book over here.
478, which paragraph?
Second paragraph, Nardidira.
Ja. Dit werd toegetan bij tachtenem dafke. In der Aveda von Eden en Elam Haza hatachten. Zu machen von Dvorim Gashmi Makelu Lalakus, weil dafke durch dem kommt alles Begili, der Schädisch von Neshamas Yisroel, wie sie seine Meyuchat mit Atzmusa Yisbarich. Yeah?
Yeah, Signal Nacher, yeah, that.
To say it in other words, then werd toegetan Begili as Eden seine Nadira Le Yisbarich. When will the world know, Begili, that Yidden and the Eibishter are one, as is eine Meyuchad mit Atzmusa Yisbarich betachlis on Shum Hagbolo ve'ikuv, is es dafke, wenn eich de Hagbolo medide von de Tachtenem is nicht kemenie nor Adarabe, de Tachtenem allein werden durch de Yidden amoke Muchsher for Adira Le Yisbarich. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're saying. When everybody, even your enemy, thinks that you're getting married is a wonderful thing and comes to celebrate it with you, now the marriage is complete. So, in order for the Eibishter and Yidden to have this relationship that exists, because kol echad, in order for it to be complete, begilui, it has to be appreciated and celebrated by Kol Rishei Oretz. The biggest anti-Semite has to be thrilled that Yidden have a special relationship with the Eibishter. Not only not be jealous, which is anti-Semitism, not only not be jealous, but actually be thrilled. Why? Because the Eibishter and Yidden are kol echad, and Yidden exist betachteinem in aguf, we get to have a little bit of that. That's our biggest chus. That Yidden live in our world, the Midbar Ha'amim, and they are one with the Eibishter. And this comes out begilui. So now the Eibishter is accessible to the non-Jew too, to the anti-Semite. Who was it who said, Tzemach Tzedek? He said, the Eibishter hat gehat a Teive, und das ist unser Mazel. That's Yidden saying. The ultimate gilui is when the non-Jewish world says, the Eibishter and Yidden have a Teive, and that's our mazel, because now we get to be included. Not in the marriage, but in the wedding. So what really is the chiddush here? We've known all this. This is old news. V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'seicham. That's how old this news is. It's a posuk in Chumash. B'seichai le'nemar ele b'seicham. Why b'seicham? Because Yidden and the Eibishter are really one and the same. Which explains what it says in Tanya, that every Jew has an Ava Mesuteres. To understand that properly, what in the world is an Ava Mesuteres? It's a love that you don't know. You really love the Eibishter, but you don't know it. You don't feel it. That needs explaining, because love is a feeling. If you don't feel it, you don't have it. You can't have a feeling you don't feel. So what are you telling me? I love him, I just don't know it. If I don't feel ahava, then I don't have ahava, because ahava is a feeling. So really what he's saying in Tanya is not that you have an ahava, but it's hidden. Like, you really love your child, but you don't realize how much you love him. Okay, so the ahava is there, and you're out of touch with reality, so you don't even know what you yourself are feeling. But then you would call it an ahava, an ahava hamustar, not mesuteres. Mesuteres sounds like it's the nature of this ahava that you don't feel it. Not it's an ahava, but because you're out of your mind, so you don't feel what you're feeling. It's a sickness. You need therapy. The Alter Rebbe is saying there's an ahava that you don't feel. What kind of ahava is that? So in Perek Yutes, the Alter Rebbe says, what is Mesiras Nefesh of the Kal Shebekalim? Until he's asked to give up his Yiddishkeit, his connection to the Eibishter, he doesn't realize that he's connected. The only time he feels connected is when you threaten to take away the connection. So what does that show? It's very much like a 4-year-old child. You ask a 4-year-old, do you love your mother? A mother asks a 4-year-old, do you love me? Unless he was programmed and trained to say, I love you, a 4-year-old doesn't know what that means. Never thought about it, doesn't worry about it, doesn't. So a mother says, hey, you love me. Kid says, I don't know what you're talking about. So the mother says, oh, so you don't love me, I'm leaving. Oh boy. So what does that show? There's an ahava that is so natural that you don't feel it. Not because something is covering it up. Fakert. It is so natural, why would you feel it? You don't feel your kidneys functioning, you don't feel your liver functioning, unless it's malfunctioning. As long as everything is normal, and the Eibishter and Yidden are kul echad, why would you feel anything? That's an
but the reality of life is that we, as natural as it is, there's a lot of malfunctions, That's the reality of life,
But the malfunction is never in the connection itself. In other words, the child will never stop being his mother's child. The malfunction is if the mother leaves the house.
So speaking about the Yossi, is it okay that I'm talking here?
Of course, go.
Okay. So speaking about the mother leaving the house, I just what the Rebbe says in the last ois, basically, and this is really what I'll be reading to Fabring about, this idea that now that we know what we know about the Avim Mesuteres, and now that we know what we know about Yisroel B'Kishbrichu Kul Echad, and we understand what the Did is, we understand what our role is in this world, and what we're trying to accomplish, and why the world is there, etc. So the Eibusha builds a mishkan, but Moshe can't go in, can't go in. But he says, but first you gotta go, and the Rebbe says, well, always the chitzonius, it looks like there's a siluk, something wrong is happening, but truthfully, that it's specifically through here that it's an aliyah, right? And in other words, when there's a malfunction, what seems to you like leaving, what seems to you like disappear, like disconnection, and that the Av is not there. Really, that's where the Aliyah is. That's where it is. So, I mean, well, I'll ask more. I'll talk more. But this is something that this is what the Rebbe is saying here. Basically, in other words, if you want Moshe Rabbeinu to go into the Mishkan, right, or to tap in, it has to be dafka when the malfunction, whatever, when it seems like there's a problem. So dafka when you're on the journey, dafka when you're thrown out of the comfort zone.
But here we have to be careful with the words we use. When the Eibishter seems to have left, it's only because there's a deeper ahava that is about to be revealed, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not ahava. It's achdus. What needs to be revealed is not the Eibishter loves Yidden. How many times in Torah Shebeksav does the Eibishter say, I love you? 3, 4? The rest of the time he's angry at us. It's not ahava. Ahava is part of the gilui. But what is being nisgala? The kulachad. That's atzmus. Ahava is giluyim. The ultimate dira b'tachtenim is when atzmus itself is begilui, which is not giluyim. Giluyim means attributes, aspects, midas, spheres, netzolim. It's not him. What comes out, dafke b'tachtenim, and dafke tachten she'ein lamata himena, is not ahava. Ahava does not flourish in tachtenim. Giluyim can't function in tachtenim. So in unholiness, you can't have holiness. You can have him. Because he is much greater than holiness. So you can't say there is holiness in the unholy. That sounds like double talk. If it's holy, why is it unholy? If it's unholy, how is it holy? So you don't have holiness in a place of unholiness, but you have him. And when he is there, then everything is there.
There's another interesting point that I think the Rebbe is emphasizing here as well, that it's al yidei ha-tachtin that accomplishes the dira b'tachtenim.
Yeah.
It's dafka the tachtin, not gili of Erin Seif, but the tachtin alone accomplishes tachtin.
Not despite, but because of. So here's the next point. Dira b'tachtenim, we've understood. We've learned Chassidus. You understand that it's possible. Even in the Tachten, les asar poni menei, esak shamayim shamoto, va'atzia sha'el hineka. It's an old idea. The shaila is not whether the Eibishter can be in the Tachten. The shaila is, why dafke the tachten? It's not that the Eibishter can be revealed even in a tachten. It's only in the tachten. Shamayim u'shmei shamayim lo yichalkelucha.
Translate.
The Eibishter cannot be revealed in heaven. Holiness can be revealed in heaven. Heavenliness belongs in heaven, but he himself, only in the tachten. And that's why Torah leiba shamayim he. The Eibishter cannot be known by the angels. A malach cannot understand him. A malach can understand holy. Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. You can imagine the Eibishter talking to a malach. He says, can I tell you what happened? I created the world in 6 days. I rested on the Shabbos, and Shabbos is my whole. And the angel is saying, Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. And the Eibishter says, okay, calm down. Can I talk to you? Kodesh, Kodesh. Okay, forget it. The malach can't see past higher than Kodesh. Let's put it in different words. The malach can't see past the onon that is in the mishkan. Ubahaleis ha'onon. The malach can't handle it. Hecher than the mishkan? Higher than mokem kedusha? No, Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh.
So
only the tachten. Because he is a tachten. And because Giluyim don't impress him. So you come to a person, a human being, and you say, you want Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh? He says, no. You want Gan Eden? No. Not interested. In that case, we can talk. Because now you understand me. Because the Eibishter is not in Gan Eden, and the Eibishter is not in heaven, and the Eibishter is not Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. That's what a malach can appreciate. But a tachten can appreciate the Eibishter himself. Why dafke a tachten? Because the Eibishter is mitziyusei me'atzmusei. A malach cannot relate to that. What do you mean you don't have a creator? That's not possible. That can't be. What's a being without a creator? But the tachten thinks he is the creator. The tachten understands Einaid Milvadi. Because most of my life I thought Einaid Milvadi. So a being without a creator? Yeah, that's me. Now we can talk. So the human being says Einaid Milvadi. Torah says no. Einaid Milvadoi. Get it right. You understand what we're talking about, right? You understand Einaid, but you think it's you. No, it's not you. It's him. That's why the etzem, the atzmus, the Eibishter himself can be revealed only in a place that is without Giluyim, where Kedusha can't go, where Tov and Ra don't matter, or Tov is not better than the Ra. That's where the Eibishter himself can be revealed. Because what are we going to see when the Eibishter himself is revealed? That Yisroel, the Kutchebrichu, kul echad, without good, without Kedusha, without mitzvahs, without Torah. Kul echad. Nobody, nowhere in the higher worlds can that be recognized, known, and appreciated. The big compliment to the rest of the world is that although the other nations, the Midbar Ha'amin, are not kul echad, but they understand it very well. So when they realize the Eibishter and Yidden are kul echad, they understand it, because they thought it was them.
for a moment, I was going to ask you what if you can about Tikkun Olam, but I think we can move on from that. But I'm just listening. I'm listening to you talking. I'm listening to this. I'm looking at the sikha over here. A few weeks ago, I have to tell everybody that I know Rabbi Winner very well. Yossi is a good friend. There was a few weeks ago a sikha that we spoke about. The Rebbe says about Rav Yosef that had a party on Shavuos because Ilab Hayoyim Kama Yosef Ikab B'Shuka. If not for Shavuos, he wouldn't be Torah, wouldn't be anything. And the Rebbe focuses on one word. The Rashi says, "Shalamaditi Torah v'nisrei mamti," that I learned Torah and I'm uplifted. And we speak. That's the whole idea of this Fabregan came about, is that we have to learn the Rebbe's Torah in a way that we feel v'nisrei mamti, that we're changed, that we're not but that we're not the same people after we learn it. We're not just learning it and checking it off, trying to get through another sikha, but suddenly to learn it in a way, and to look at it in a way that the Rebbe is trying to uplift us. And I'm looking over here at the end. Just that's my introduction to this. What I'm about to say over here. Here the Rebbe is talking to at the end of the sikha, and it cooking befratas yod inish ben afshez and maimud u'maseh prati. That Rebbe is talking to the individual who understands very well. Who's in a situation that's conflicted, because he's far from perfect, right? And the Rebbe wants him to change his attitude to understand that he has to understand that Hashem mitzad yigaver. This is part of the journey. The journey is where it's going to. In other words, dir b'tachtonim it's you're the dira. So you just have to. Yeah. So okay, fine. I've messed up. I've done what I've done. But that doesn't, and I'm asking for a message to the person learning the sikha or living life and listening to us talk over here, and trying to and struggling with the fact that the nefesh Bahamis is in control of his life. How can you use this as a tools or for b'nisrei mamti? To change, to look at life differently.
B'nisrei mamti is a funny word, no? That's what happens? How do you understand? What does that mean? In simple English, what does it mean? V'nisrei mamti.
I went in an elevator.
Nisrei mamti means in the eyes of others. Not I think highly of myself.
Right.
Yoda inish benafshe. I don't think I'm great. Nisrei mamti, in my own eyes, I feel that I am special. That's pop psychology. Nisrei mamti means the world looks up to me. I know what I am, and it's far from perfect, but the world has to look up to the Jewish people. The Nisrei mamti is so necessary. This combination of I know who I am, but for the rest of the world, they have to look up. I have to be their light. Lagoyim. I was talking recently. It's a little bit off the subject, but it's when the Rebbe always dismissed and rejected every project that anybody wanted to do about the Sheva Mitzvahs. The Rebbe spoke about it, screamed about it. When wir verbringen, der Rebbe said, gesessen 2 Show mit an einer Yehudi und nicht dem Mond die Sheva Mitzvahs? Like, unthinkable. Okay, so let's do this project now. It never became a mitzvah. It finally dawned on me, listening to people talk about it. You can't be mekarev anybody if you're looking down at them. If you think you're doing them a favor, you're not being mekarev them, you're being merachik them. And that's why the word kiruv is so inappropriate. If you really, truly respect another person's greatness, V'hanefesh mi yedei gduloson u'ma'aloson. Then you can be mekarev. But if you're the big chacham and you're the big tzaddik and you're talking down to, you'll turn off more people than you turn on. Same is true with the Sheva mitzvahs. If you're talking down, don't even try. The only way you can be matzliach with Yaakov Kol Ha'olam in the Sheva mitzvahs, Kol Boi Olam, is if you respect them. Sheva mitzvahs. You're not talking about child's play here. You're talking about Rotzen Elyon. According to one, I don't know who it is, I remember, but at least one of the Mefarshim on Rashi, on Chumash. What is Kesed Torah? Not 613, 620. So most of the Mefarshim say that's the Sheva Mitzvahs D'Rabbanan. But at least one of them says, no, it's the Sheva Mitzvahs the Bnei Noach. Keser Torah is made up of the Taryag Mitzvahs for Yidden. That's part of Keser Torah. You're not talking down. It's part of the Shleimus, which reminds me of this video where the Rebbe is talking to the lieutenant of the police force. I'd be afraid to meet him in the streets at night. And the Rebbe says to him, it was so shocking. The Rebbe says to him, you can see it, it's on the video. The Rebbe says to him, I give tzedakah, charity, every day, and it helps me. Maybe it'll help you too. If you don't have that kind of derech eretz, I do it, you do it, without a lahavdul, the Rebbe could have said, I do it and it helps me, and lahavdul, you too. No lahavdul. When it comes to doing a mitzvah is a mitzvah. Whether it's mitzvah d'Rabbanan, mitzvah d'Oraisa, or mitzvah b'nei Noach. If we had that kind of attitude, then we could go miftzayim. You can talk to the non-Jewish world. But if you're talking down with the attitude that most people have, so v'nisrei mamti means it's neigeya in tachlus hakavona from dira b'tachtenim that the non-Jew should look up to the Jew. Why? Because the Jew is perfect. Yada inish benafshi. So what's the sachakel and what is the aveda? The aveda is when you tell people you have to make a dira b'tachtenim, it's very exciting. Wow, we're gonna build a dira b'tachtenim. Dira b'tachtenim is already built. All the heavy lumber, all the mason work, it's already done.
Don't go to Home Depot.
The buttons are polished. Was ist schon geblieben? To make a dira b'tachtenim today means do a simple mitzvah that no one will even notice. Because that's all that's lacking. Machshava achas. Pa'ula achas. Not even a mitzvah d'oraisa. Stama kindness. By anybody could be the finishing touch to the dira b'tachtenim.
If I can ask a radical question, and that is using this attitude that wherever you're going, you have to have a dira b'tachtenim, that it's part of the shlichus. What's your message to the shluchim in Ukraine who are seeing what they thought their shlichus was for so many years, or not what they, they built communities, they built whatever, seeing it literally disintegrate in front of their eyes, And now some of them, will have to maybe move their kahillas to other places, to other, whatever. If one of them was listening now and you were giving them a little bit of chizuk through this mishugin time, how would you use such a sikha to uplift them?
The sikha is perfect for today. What they're seeing in the Ukraine, shluchim, is bahalis ha'onan ha'mishkan. The mishkan is great. You built a mishkan, a Chabad house. It's all wonderful. And it's not going away. It's bahalis ha'onan. Now you got to get past the mishkan to the people everywhere outside the mishkan. It's an aliyah, the sikha says. And that's what's happening. The dir b'tachtenim is now in the tachten that is in midbar ha'amim, not in your mishkan. It's coming from the mishkan. The Chabad house is the place where the Rebbe is and where the Eibishter is, and from there it spreads every place else when it is oila, not yedid. So what's happening now is ha'lois ha'onan. Now every soldier on the battlefield has to say Einaid Milvade. And they will. Some big official over there in Ukraine, the vice president or something, actually said to the Russian soldiers, you don't have to do this. You don't want to do this. You don't need to do this. Put down your weapons. You can go to any country you want. They'll accept you. We're living, hear this? We're living in biblical times. And look where it's being said. Ukraine, the capital of the world for anti-Semitism, with a Jewish president. If I could pick one thought that might help change the whole situation there, that the president can say to the people, now is the time. Talk to them about God. They'll hear it. It'll move them. It'll change the whole matzav. It's a perfect time to say to a Russian soldier, who are you going to listen to? A man who tells you to kill, or God who says no murdering? It's now the time. He said biblical times. Okay, that's getting close. Otats, and one more word. The Dira B'Tachtenim now has to happen in the non-Jewish Ukrainian former anti-Semite. And in what form? He has to realize, I'm not just following orders like the Nazis. I don't want to kill children. I don't want to kill women. I don't want to kill innocent people. I don't want it. I don't want. It's wrong. So put down the weapon and beat it into a plowshare. Now is the time.
God.
So the president, the Jewish president of the Ukraine, has to ask himself, Mi yedeya im le'ez kozeh higat lemalchus. Now is the time to be Jewish. Don't be a politician. Talk like a Jew. And the world will look up to you, v'esreimamti. Because the Torah is, Hi chachmaschem u'binaschem le'enei ha'amim. Don't talk politics. Talk Torah. It's the most powerful weapon we have. And now is the time to use it. It's stronger than the atomic nuclear weapons.
Thank you.
I think
Yeah.
even Putin can hear it now. Yes.
You know, when I heard from someone recently that he said it's on video, and they asked when COVID happened in the beginning, and they asked Yisroel, he said he was on maybe on a Zoom or something. They asked a video. They said, "What is it all about?" He said he doesn't know, but it's something to do with Pikudei.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stam, I was going to mention before, we were talking about mi yichya mi yamus. That's not something to be crying about, but Yeda kol pol katap alte. The whole Tehillim is soaked with tears, right? Every other kapitel. What is David HaMelech crying about? David HaMelech married Bathsheba, and Mashiach was born from that. And what did the world say? Gesindigt. David HaMelech is crying about it. Kishabo al Bathsheba. What is he crying? How long is the Eibishter going to be hidden? I do a mitzvah, they call it an aveda. The Eibishter is begili everywhere, and they say he doesn't exist. In other words, David HaMelech was crying because the dira b'tachtenim was not happening fast enough. That's the whole Tehillim. Anyway, so I was going to mention that Mendel Morozov, Olav Shalom, he tells a story about two chassidim, true story, he forgot the names. They were older people, and one of them was on his last breath. So he said to his friend, is there a minyan? Friend, a minyan? For Yetzias Neshama, it's a big thing to have a minyan. So his friend said to him, Oy, gewalt a ganzen Leben gelebt a Balgeive. You have to die a Balgeive too. Starb Gesundheit und mach nicht kein Tummel. Mach von sich nicht kein Tummel. Mi yichya mi yamus. That's the Eibishter's cheshbon. What are you crying about? What's your cheshbon? Your cheshbon is you're in the world already how many years, and v'yeda kol pol ki ata pa'alte hasn't happened yet. That you should cry about. So the Rebbe says in Ata Tetzaveh that because the nefesh alikis is a chelek alakami mal mamish, which means kol echad. You think a chelek, a little piece. No, it's kol echad. Since it's kol echad, it's not the Eibush that needs a dira b'tachtenim from you. You need a dira b'tachtenim exactly the same way he needs it. And until there's a dira b'tachtenim, you're in ganzen zertreselt. Because someplace, somewhere, there's a po'ul that doesn't know that ato pa'alte. It's negeya in your neshama, in the etzem of your neshama, because you and the Eibishter are one. That was the final chiddush. Because nobody ever said that before. Dira b'tachtenim, that's the Eibishter's issue, and if we can help him out, we'll help him out. Don't act like a stranger. It's like a husband telling his wife, you need help with the children? Okay, I have a half hour, I'll help you out. What is it, her children? This is not your issue. So what we should expect and demand from the Eibishter is that in Ukraine and in Russia, it's time that Yeda kol pa'ol ki ata pe'alte v'yoven kol yitzur ki ata yitzarte. And how will we know that that happened? V'yemar kol asher neshama ba'apei, that Hashem elikei Yisroel is melech, v'hisrei mamti.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Reb Manis. It was a beautiful Farbrengen.
You can, I mean, now we can take away the sikha a little bit, not just in personal, but also to understand what our kavanah, what our goal is, which we should wake up in the morning, what we should be doing. The attitude, the constant attitude of revealing the Yisroel b'kush b'recha kol echad.
Talking to people who are charedim, kodesh, 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 be'emes, kodesh, 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 but they have no sheiches to the Eibishter. Hafotzas hamayones and dira b'tachtein and locher are the same thing. So somebody said to me from Borough Park or Williamsburg, he says, I know you're mekadev the people with the long hair. But what about the people with the long payas? We need it just as much. V'yeda kol pa'ol. So everybody in their shlichus and in their circles and in the people that they can reach. I remember when we started Beis Chana, it was a big chiddush that women are learning Chassidus. Even Lubavitcher women weren't learning Chassidus in Tafshin Lamed. They had up to a half hour in Beis Rivka. Somebody came in, didn't talk to them, didn't look at them, taught them up to a page of. There was no real learning Chassidus. It was Aftziyetzezain. And here we have women who are not frum at all, and they're learning Chassidus. But they were only there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. What are you going to accomplish? So I remember talking to Rabbi Yisroel about it. And I said to Rabbi Yisroel, my goal is they're going to come away knowing that there's an Eibishter. And they can't get away from it anymore. What they're going to do with that, I don't know. But now the ball is in their court. Now you know there's an Eibishter, you know you're a Jew. Okay, so suffer until you work it out. But you can't ignore it anymore. What more can you accomplish in 3 weeks? He approved.
Yeah.
So v'yeda kol pol ka'ata pa'alte, the rest will come. Lahafne seilecha kol rishei aretz. Yeah, and what are they going to do? Don't worry about it. Once hafne seilecha kol rishei aretz,
It's a good enough start.
It'll all fall into place inevitably. Like Gabriel used to say, now that you learned Chassidus, it'll dig in your soul and make you miserable until you become a mensch. Because now you can't shake it. You can't hide behind ignorance. And that's Hafotzos Hamayonis, Yedias Hashem. You're going to make everybody into a tzaddik, into a Shem Torah mitzvahs? No, you don't do that. or somebody said that the Rebbe said, obviously he's paraphrasing, the Rebbe was asked, what is a Rebbe? And the Rebbe said, the job of a Rebbe is to introduce a Jew to God and get out of the way. It's a nice way of saying that Rebbe gives you the match, and now it's up to you.
So if I can end off by asking for a promo for Project Likutei Sichos, that people to inspire those who are currently learning and those who are just listening because they're listening to the Fabring, and the importance of opening up these sichos and learning them weekly, and the opportunity that has been given to the world through this project.
Anybody who wants to do his neshama a favor, even his nefesh habahamis, learn one sikha and know it by heart. The way it is, the way it's written with the words, the way it is. Engrave it in your brain and you will become a different person. It will lift you up. One sikha. But if you really absorb it, it's a different world. You want to use this sikha? Use this sikha. But internalize it. Make it yours. So if somebody says, do you know a sikha from the Rebbe? You say, do I know it? It's engraved in my brain. It'll even help you be healthier. Because like the Rebbe says, the Gashmias by a Jew is also Ruchnias. So definitely follow the learning, but make it personal. It's not just a project, it's life itself. Anyway, we should have a freiliche month.
An early good Chodesh. Thank you.
The most freiliche Purim ever.
Amen.
With Neflois Areno.
Amen.
And the only Neflois that we want is that an anti-Semite should say, I am lucky to be in the same world with a Jew.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
The